Hi, everyone. Welcome to the session on Zero to Hero iOS Basics with Jamf Pro. My name is Kyle Andrews, and I'm a sales engineer at Crayon and a former sales engineer at Jamf. Along with me today, co-leading this presentation is Adam Derrick. And Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Kyle. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting before, my name is Adam Derrick. I'm a field sales engineer here at Jamf, covering the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. I assist prospective and current customers with any technical hurdles within their Apple environments and help to develop creative solutions tailored towards their needs. Prior to working at Jamf, I've been supporting Apple devices in the enterprise, healthcare, and higher education sectors for the last 14 years.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. Now let's jump into the session. So through this session, as it says, we're going to start you all from zero of Hercules, starting out in his hero's journey, and bringing you all of you from zero all the way to hero as it relates to understanding and managing your iOS devices within your environment. Now, a quick agenda for today. We are going to first talk about why iOS management matters, the differences between a managed iOS device and a supervised iOS device, some enrollment methods, as well as Adam is going to go into real-time iOS workflows of showing you workflows within Jamf Pro itself and its impact on the iOS devices itself. Now, some quick terminology and lay of the land. When we are referring to iOS in this presentation, we are also referring to iPadOS. We're going to use them interchangeably within this presentation. Next, we're also going to be referring to Apple Business Manager, or ABM for short. And what it is it's actually a free service offered to organizations that have Apple products. It is highly recommended, and it is something that will allow you to kind of do two main things. One, it's going to be able to track your institutionally owned devices, as well as be able to purchase apps and books in mass without having to have an Apple ID involved for your iOS devices. One claimer, it is not a replacement for an MDM. It is something that supplements your MDM, and hopefully your MDM of choice being Jamf Pro. So why does iOS management matter? Well, a few things. First, it's going to be able to empower your end users. Being able to empower your end users to be successful on the go with their iOS devices. We all know that we live in a mobile world, and being able to have access to corporate resources anywhere on any device is something that really, really matters. Additionally, it's going to be able to simplify end users' experience, being able to have it so that the corporate resources, email, Slack, all can be set up on devices and be able to simplify those end user experiences. We also live in a world that is full of compliance needs, and being able to prove things out, certain applications, what version they're on, all those different things are going to be possible within the iOS management piece. Additionally, we're also going to be able to help automate current processes, being able to leverage things called smart groups within Jamf Pro to be able to help kick off things automatically, as well as being able to do things in mass, being able to deploy down email or different applications to a set of people in departments or in mass to all of your iOS users. That's something that Jamf is going to be able to allow you to do. And then finally, being able to protect your corporate resources, being able to make sure that there's passcodes enabled and enforced on all your devices, being able to make sure that if a device has been compromised, you can throw it into something called lost mode, which Adam's going to get into, to be able to lock that device if we believe it's been compromised. Now let's dive into the different types of iOS device management. There are two ways in which you can manage a device. One is called managed and the other is supervised. Now let's dive into what managed means. So managing an iOS device or having a managed iOS device is going to give you basic management. And this nice little analogy of having a parent be able to put a helmet on their kid and have them drive down the block to their friends is kind of a good analogy of what you can think about a managed device. You're kind of empowering and trusting your users to be able to kind of go do their things. Now, when it comes to best practices and what managed has really been built for and utilized is for BYOD environments, or bring your own device. Lots of individuals within the organization own their phone, and this is the way in which you can manage a device. When it comes to the capabilities of a managed device, it's going to break down into kind of four main things or four common workflows that we see customers utilizing. First is going to be passcode enforcement, being able to make sure that someone rotates their password every 90 days, for example. Being able to deploy down applications, being able to make sure that they have things like Confluence or Slack on their device to be able to be successful and connect with teams. Also, being able to make it so that Wi-Fi payloads can be set up. So if you want individuals managed device to be able to walk into one of your offices globally or regionally, they can have it automatically hooked up and connected to the Wi-Fi when they enter the building. And then finally, being able to deploy out email, corporate email down to individuals are all things that are possible with managed functionality. Now, the other way in which you can manage a device is something called supervised. Now, supervised is going to be advanced management, and by the picture you can kind of see here, a little bit more of a helicopter parent with the best of intentions, and sometimes it's needed in intentions. And supervised is only for institutionally owned devices. It is something that is just kind of recommended for institutional devices, not a requirement, but definitely something that's great around there. Now, all of the functionality that I talked about previously for a managed device comes with supervision, as well as a couple other things. Four main common workflows that we see from organizations utilizing supervision on their devices is kind of four main things. First is lost mode, being able to brick a device and get the geographic location is one of the ways in which you can utilize supervision. Next is being able to update the operating system in mass or based on departments is something that you're going to be able to do with supervision. You're going to be able to restrict apps. So say that you don't want any streaming services eating up your data, or just you don't want streaming services on the devices themselves. That's something that you're going to be able to limit through supervision. And then finally, we have single app mode. Single app mode is going to be something that will allow you to, for kiosk workflows, you want something like Envoy or a check-in application to be able to use for your end users, and you can just lock it into that device so users or no one can get out of that app. Now, your probably question is, how do I go about doing this? How do I get the devices managed? There are three ways in which you can go about getting a device managed. First is leveraging Apple Business Manager. The second is Apple Configurator 2. And the third is user-initiated enrollment. Now, each of these ways in which you get a device managed, the enrollment method will affect what type of management it has. So first, when it relates to supervision, you're going to have to leverage Apple Business Manager, which is more or less having it in place and ordering your devices directly from Apple or an authorized reseller, and making sure that those devices are directly tied to Apple Business Manager. As well as there's Apple Configurator 2, which is more of a manual process where you hook up your device directly to a Mac and enroll it manually through an application found in the Mac App Store called Apple Configurator 2. Now, to just get basic management, you can leverage something called user-initiated enrollment. User-initiated enrollment is simply an enrollment URL link that your end users can go through to be able to enroll their devices. It takes less than 60 seconds for your end users to be able to do. Now, again, the recommended workflow, say you're rolling out a new set of devices to your employees or students, being able to leverage Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager to be able to roll out your devices. And we're assuming a few things. One, they're institutionally owned and you really want to have them supervised. Now, one of the nice workflows around zero-touch is something called zero-touch deployment, and there's some really cool magic that is able to happen. With a zero-touch deployment, what that's meaning is that as an IT team, an IT professional, you're able to use and leverage the systems of Apple Business Manager and Jamf Pro to be able to drop ship devices, your iOS or iPadOS devices, to someone's door, or simply just set it on someone's desk. And what they're going to be able to do is undo the shrink wrap, open it, power it on for the first time, and that device is going to be set up for them to be able to do that. Again, a zero touch, no IT needing to facilitate or touch that device, and having that device pre-configured for that end user to be successful. Now let's walk through the workflow of how kind of all this magic happens. So when that end user is able to unbox, empowering that device onto the first time, it's going to ask them to connect to Wi-Fi. When it is connected to Wi-Fi, it's going to reach out to Apple and say, hey, does this belong to anyone's Apple Business Manager? When it does that, it's going to, in real time, say, in this case, yes, it is connected to Apple Business Manager and is tied to your specific organization. Then in real time, Apple Business Manager is going to reach out and say, oh, is there a connection directly tied to an MDM? And in this case, yes. And it will say that, hey, this is actually managed by Jamf Pro. Within Jamf Pro, it's going to understand or try to recognize, is this uniquely configured in one way, shape, or form? In this case, yes, it is going to be configured in such a way for the device to be successful with the applications, the restrictions that you need to reach compliances for that device to be used within your organization. Now, again, that is the magic kind of behind a zero-touch deployment of being able to have a supervised device enrolled within Apple Business Manager connected to Jamf Pro to be able to facilitate a great experience of drop shipping a device, having that device set up for an end user to be able to be successful, meeting compliance standards that you might have, as well as getting the applications without you ever having to touch devices, and you being able to do that in mass, being able to do that at scale for your organization, saving you lots of time and money. Now for Adam's portion, he's going to go walk through some real-time workflows, showing you Jamf Pro and the workflow that you'd be able to do to facilitate these different workflows, to be able to show you not only the power of Jamf Pro, but then what that means for your iPad and showing you that. So Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kyle. What we're going to be looking at the next few minutes are some real-time workflows regarding app deployment, app restrictions, utilizing the Jamf self-service application to make resources and applications available to your users. Really nifty feature called Lost Mode, which is going to help us in the event that we have an iOS device go missing, being able to lock that device down and gain control of that device back. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with single app mode. So let's just envision we have a use case where we want to go ahead and deploy a few applications down onto our devices. Google Maps, maybe an HR application like Paycom, and then a conferencing solution like Microsoft Teams. We're going to go ahead and get this set up in Jamf Pro, and we're going to do that by navigating to Devices, and we're going to head down to Mobile Device Apps. All of our apps from Apple Business Manager are going to be synced in here, and there's a few things that we need to do to get those applications set up. First and foremost, we're going to select the Edit button here, and we're going to tell Jamf to go ahead and install that application automatically, and we could even have Jamf go ahead and check the App Store daily for updates and force those updates to happen. We're also setting our scope. So this is who we want the application to be deployed to. In this case, Google Maps, we want to be made available to all the devices in our environment. As I open up the Paycom application here, I'm going to be doing the same exact thing. So I'm going to be telling that application to install automatically. I'm going to tell it to go ahead and run an update if an update is available. And this is a feature that's helped out a lot of customers I've worked with. And then we're going to assign our licenses from Apple Business Manager. So this is going to allow us to go ahead and deploy the application without the need for having an Apple ID on a device. This is all leveraging the Apps and Books feature of Apple Business Manager. And finally, we're going to set up our Microsoft Teams application. And as you can see, once you do one application, it's pretty much a breeze with Jamf Pro. Now, one neat thing with the scope feature in Jamf Pro is you do have the ability to target specific departments, groups, or individual devices. So if you have an application that you only want to go to this iPad, you could set the scope to only target this specific iPad. So Now that we have that set up inside of Jamf Pro, what is that experience going to look like for the end user? So maybe today we have an iPad, and that iPad has some applications on it. But we want to make sure that this particular subset of iPads has Google Maps, the Paycom HR application, and Microsoft Teams installed. So once we save that app deployment in Jamf Pro, it's going to go ahead and install these applications over the air without any end user interaction. These applications are going to install instantaneously. Dependent upon your network connection, it may take a few minutes for the application to download and install, but it's a relatively very smooth process. As you can see here, Google Maps is just about finished installing. And then after Google Maps is installed, the next app in line is going to be the Paycom application. What I love about this workflow is you don't have to go visit each individual device and sign into the App Store and download the application. The applications are just embedded here on the home screen, installed automatically without you or anybody else on your team having to physically touch this device. With employees being more and more remote, if we have a new application that we're going to be deploying down onto a device, it's just that easy. As you can see here, we are not signed in with an Apple ID, and we don't have the App Store available on our device. So we're strictly using Jamf Pro to make the applications available on this iPad. Next, we're going to be talking about app restrictions. So maybe we want our users to have the App Store installed on their device and available to them, but maybe we have certain applications such as Netflix, Hulu, Pandora, or even the Indeed application. Maybe we don't want somebody to be looking for a new job on their company or corporate device. What we can use in Jamf Pro is a feature called app restrictions, where we could go ahead and set applications that we want to allow or applications that we do not want to allow. So taking a look here, we're going to go ahead and create a configuration profile in Jamf Pro. Configuration profiles, think of it like manage system settings. So we're going to create a new profile for app restrictions. And just to save some time, I already had one created here. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to utilize the payloads over on the left, in this case, a restriction for apps. And if we scroll down to the bottom, I already have a bunch of the core applications on the iPad that come installed. These apps are not allowed, so they're going to go ahead and get hidden from the home screen on the iPad. I'm going to pop in the app here, in this case, Netflix. I don't want anybody to be able to access Netflix on this device. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And this is going to, over the air, go ahead and distribute this profile in real time. So all these changes are going to happen on the fly. So today we have the iPad, and the iPad has all these applications on it. And we're distributing down that configuration profile that we built out to go ahead and hide all the system applications, and then go ahead and restrict access to the Netflix application, but still make the App Store available. So as you can see, that configuration profile got pushed down. We only have the applications that we made available in Jamf Pro. We go into the App Store. We're going to go ahead and download Netflix. And once Netflix downloads, the user is going to go ahead and open up Netflix, and they'll be presented with a message letting them know that that application is prohibited from being ran on this device. As you can see, other applications that we downloaded from the App Store, like Google Maps, we're still able to open up those applications. It's only the applications that we restrict that will not be made available to the user. You also might have noticed that the Netflix application, even though we downloaded it from the App Store, it's not showing up on the home screen on the iPad. Now, we can't do anything to prevent that application from showing up in the App Store itself, but the user is presented with that friendly message letting them know, hey, you're not allowed to use Netflix. These are the only 5 applications that you're allowed to use. Next, we're going to be talking about the Jamf self-service portal. The Jamf self-service portal is a great repository where you can make features, applications, and configurations available to your users. The self-service application is free to all Jamf users, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of it. Let's say that we have some devices that we want our core applications to be pushed down onto those devices. However, maybe we have some optional applications that not everybody needs. Maybe DocuSign. Not everybody needs it, so we don't want to have it automatically install. That's where we can leverage the self-service portal. So taking a look here in Jamf Pro, we're going to go ahead and configure the self-service application. So we're going to head down here to mobile device apps, and we're going to open up the self-service application that came over from Apple Business Manager from Apps and Books. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to enable that application, and we're going to tell Jamf Pro to install that application automatically. We're also going to tell Jamf Pro to deploy this application down to every user in our environment and use those licenses from Apple Business Manager. One final note, self-service utilizes app config. So as you could see, there's a preference list that gets pasted in there. And that preference list just allows the application to communicate back with your Jamf Pro instance and grab any applications that you assign to the self-service portal. So here I'm going to go ahead and deploy the Square point of sale application. And as you can see here under my distribution method, I have it set to install via the self-service portal, and we're going to make it available to all of our devices. We could even go ahead and customize the description of the application dependent upon how we're using that application in our company, and even have it featured at the top of the self-service portal. So now that we got self-service deployed down onto our devices, and we went ahead and set up an application to appear in self-service, let's see what that looks like, because we're not all app developers. So we try to make this pretty easy for you. Looks like we had a little, there we go. So with self-service, we have an iPad here right now that has the self-service application installed on it. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and tap self-service and open up the self-service application. And as you can see here, we have all those kind of optional applications available. And this is where we could go in and we could say, I want to go ahead and install the Square POS app or Paycom HR app or DocuSign. All these applications will install immediately after you hit the install button. And what's going to happen is self-service is going to reach out to Jamf Pro. It's going to ask, hey, do I have a license available? Jamf Pro is going to come back and say, yes, I do. And then it's going to go ahead and install that application, leveraging the Apps and Books feature of Apple Business Manager. So again, this is a great way if you have employees in your environment that need applications that maybe are specific to a certain role. We can make those applications available for them without essentially eating up any kind of resources on the iPads and just making them optional in that self-service portal. Next, we're going to look at Lost Mode. And Lost Mode is one of my favorite features in Jamf Pro. Let's envision that we're in an office and I found this iPad here. And I don't know whose iPad this is, but it has a passcode on it. Um, 1234. I type in that passcode. I have access to everything on that iPad. So maybe we want to get that iPad back once it's reported lost from the end user. What it's going to look like for your team inside of Jamf Pro, they're going to go ahead and open up the device record for that device that's lost. And now that we have the device record open, we're going to go over to management and we're going to click on the enable lost mode button. From here, we're going to paste in a message that we have that's going to be displayed to the end user, along with a contact phone number. And additionally, we can have lost mode enforce a sound. So if that iPad is underneath a big stack of papers or in somebody's backpack, we're going to be able to locate that device because we're going to hear an audible alert. Now, once that command gets sent, it gets put in a pending state, as you can see here. And within a matter of seconds, that iPad is going to be locked down with that message. And additionally, what's going to happen is the GPS coordinates of that device are going to be sent back here into the Jamf Pro console. I'm going to click here on the security tab. And we're going to be able to see the approximate location of that device and open up that in our application for mapping, in this case, Apple Maps. So I'm the guy who found the iPad. Now that we sent that command down, what's that going to look like for me? So here I am. I'm playing around on the iPad. I'm going to go ahead and open up Safari, maybe start browsing the web. This is cool. I have an iPad that I just found. Well, not so fast. IT went ahead and locked that down. We're letting the user know to go ahead and return it to the IT help desk in building C. We have a phone number here to go ahead and bring that iPad back. And now that we went ahead and disabled lost mode in Jamf Pro, it's going to go ahead and communicate to the user and be transparent that the location was sent back. And then it's going to go ahead and remove the lost mode off the device. And now we could go ahead and move on with our day. One thing that's important to note, lost mode does require the device to be supervised. As Kyle mentioned before, supervision, think of it like the DNA of the device being changed, where Apple recognizes that this iPad belongs to your organization and you have the chain of custody over this device. And then finally, we're going to talk about single app mode. Let's say we have an application that we want to go ahead and deploy in a kiosk type environment like Envoy to keep track of when employees are in the office or to alert employees if somebody's there to visit them. It's as simple as making that app available in Jamf. We're going to create a config profile here to go ahead and deploy Envoy down onto the device. And then we're going to select a payload on the left-hand side for single app mode. And when we select the single app mode payload, it's going to go ahead and provide us with a drop down of any applications that are being managed by Jamf Pro, in this case, the Envoy application. So we're going to go ahead and specify that application. And then additionally, we could choose which buttons on the iPad are made available. So do we want the volume buttons available? Do we want the lock button to be touched? And then from here, I'm going to specify my Kiosk iPad. I'm going to save this, and then it's going to go ahead and deploy down onto that device. What that looks like if you have a device in your environment. Today, we could do whatever we want on that device. We could open up the Envoy application if we want, and we could hit the home button, or we could scroll up, and it's going to go ahead and quit out of Envoy. Once Envoy is in single app mode, that will no longer be the case. Anytime the iPad turns on, Envoy is the only application that it's going to be allowed to access.
Thank you, Adam. Hopefully that was very helpful seeing Jamf Pro working in real time and showing you what you can expect your end users to experience with having Jamf Pro. So hopefully now you feel like you've gone from 0 to hero status of being Hercules with all your newfound technical muscles. And again, hopefully you have experienced the knowing nothing about anything related to iOS management and understanding the basics so that now you can become a hero as it relates to your iOS management needs and goals within your organization.
Thank you very much for your time. If you're interested in ways to implement iOS management within your environment, head on over to jamf.it/request trial. This will allow you to experience Jamf Pro in your environment for up to 2 weeks. Additionally, if you're interested in talking more about iOS or Mac management, head on over to jamf.it/book Adam. That's jamf.it/book ADAM, and we could set up a 30-minute consultation. I want to thank you for attending JNUC, and most importantly, for attending this session. I hope that you enjoyed the rest of JNUC, and we're looking forward to seeing you next year. Take care.